There is a strange pattern in human life. We tell ourselves, when I finally earn enough, I will relax. When I lose the weight, I will feel confident. When I get the house, the promotion, the relationship, the recognition, the retirement, the security, then I will feel satisfied. And sometimes we get exactly what we wanted. For a little while, it feels wonderful. Then something unexpected happens. The extraordinary becomes ordinary. The new house becomes simply the house. The promotion becomes the job. The larger bank balance becomes the new baseline. The achievement that once seemed capable of changing everything becomes another part of everyday life. And soon the mind quietly asks, what next? This is one of the most persistent psychological puzzles of human existence. Why is enough so difficult to recognize? Why can people have more than they once dreamed of and still feel that something is missing? And why does the finish line so often move the moment we reach it? Welcome to the psychology of enough. In this series, we are going to examine one of the quieter forces shaping modern life. The belief that satisfaction is always waiting somewhere just beyond where we currently stand. The moving finish line. Imagine a person who earns $40,000 a year. They believe that if they could reach $60,000, life would feel secure. Eventually they do. But now their circumstances change. Their expectations change. Their social circle may change. What once looked like abundance slowly begins to look ordinary. And the new number becomes 80,000, then perhaps 100,000. This pattern is not limited to money. Someone wants 1,000 subscribers, then 10,000, then 100,000. Someone wants to lose 10 pounds. They lose 10 and begin focusing on another flaw. Someone wants a modest home. They eventually buy one and begin comparing it with larger homes nearby. The object changes. The psychology often does not. Human beings are remarkably good at adapting. That ability helps us survive difficult experiences. But adaptation has another side. We also adapt to improvements. What once produced excitement gradually becomes familiar. Psychologists often describe this process as hedonic adaptation. Pleasant changes can raise happiness temporarily, but over time we often become accustomed to the new circumstances. This does not mean achievements are meaningless. It means achievements cannot permanently carry a psychological burden they were never designed to carry. The mind is built to notice what is missing. Human attention has a peculiar tendency. Once basic needs are met, the mind does not simply shut down and announce everything is sufficient now. Instead, it keeps scanning. What could be improved? What is missing? What could go wrong? What do other people have? What haven't I accomplished yet? From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. A creature that remained permanently satisfied might stop searching for food, shelter, safety, opportunity, or social connection. Wanting more helped human beings survive. But a survival mechanism can become psychologically uncomfortable in a world where many of our wants are no longer about survival. We can have enough food and still want a better body, enough shelter and still want a more impressive home, enough possessions and still want newer ones, enough recognition and still want greater status. The mind that once searched for survival advantage can become a mind that searches endlessly for deficiency. Wanting is not the problem. This is where the subject becomes more subtle. Wanting more is not inherently unhealthy. Ambition has built businesses, discovered medicines, created art, improved communities, and transformed individual lives. There is nothing wrong with wanting to grow. There is nothing wrong with wanting greater financial security. There is nothing wrong with improving your health, developing your abilities, or setting difficult goals. The problem begins when desire quietly changes its message. Instead of, I would like more, it becomes, I cannot be okay until I have more. Those are very different psychological positions. The first allows ambition, the second creates dependency. One says, I am building something. The other says, I am incomplete until I arrive. And because arrival rarely remains emotionally satisfying forever, the person can become trapped in a permanent state of becoming. Always almost there, never quite enough. The arrival fallacy. We often overestimate how much a future achievement will change our emotional lives. We imagine the future in simplified terms. We picture ourselves receiving the promotion. We do not picture the new workload. We imagine buying the house. We do not imagine repairs, taxes, maintenance, or the fact that Tuesday morning will still feel like Tuesday morning. We imagine retirement as freedom. We may not imagine the loss of routine, identity, or social connection that can accompany it. We imagine reaching a goal, but we rarely imagine adapting to it. This creates what some psychologists have called an arrival fallacy, the belief that reaching a particular destination will finally deliver lasting happiness or completeness. But life does not stop at the destination. The achievement becomes part of the landscape, and then the mind begins searching again. Enough is often a psychological threshold. We usually talk about enough as though it were a number, enough money, enough success, enough possessions, enough recognition, but psychologically, enough may not be a quantity at all. It may be a threshold we have to consciously define. Otherwise, the surrounding culture will define it for us, and culture has very little incentive to tell us we already have enough. Advertising depends on dissatisfaction. Consumer culture depends on wanting. Social media depends partly on comparison. Status systems depend on ranking. Entire industries benefit when people believe that one more purchase, improvement, experience, or achievement might finally make them feel complete. The message is rarely, your life may already contain much of what matters. The message is usually, you are almost there, almost attractive enough, almost successful enough, almost wealthy enough, almost interesting enough, almost young enough, almost fulfilled enough. Just one more thing. When more stops improving life? There is an important question we rarely ask. At what point does more stop meaning better? More work can eventually mean less time. More possessions can mean more maintenance. More options can create greater indecision. More ambition can become chronic pressure. More social connection can become constant obligation. Even more information can become mental overload. This does not mean less is always better. It means that every form of more eventually carries costs. Enough requires recognizing the point where additional gains begin competing with other things we value. Time, peace, health, relationships, freedom, attention, sleep, presence. A person can accumulate one form of wealth while quietly spending another. The difference between contentment and complacency. Many people resist the idea of enough because they fear it will make them complacent. If I become satisfied, won't I lose my drive? If I accept myself, won't I stop improving? If I say this is enough, won't I settle? But contentment and complacency are not the same thing. Complacency says, nothing needs improvement. Contentment says, my worth does not depend on the improvement. That distinction changes everything. You can want to become healthier without hating your current body. You can pursue financial security without treating your present life as a waiting room. You can build a career without making achievement the measure of your human value. You can improve your circumstances while still recognizing what is already good. Enough does not forbid aspiration. It simply refuses to make aspiration a prerequisite for dignity. What are we really seeking? Sometimes the thing we pursue is not actually the thing we want. We want money because we want security, status because we want respect, possessions because we want identity, achievement because we want validation, busyness because we want significance, recognition because we want to know that our lives matter, and if we misunderstand the underlying need, we can spend years pursuing the symbol rather than the substance. You can accumulate money without ever feeling secure, receive praise without feeling worthy, own beautiful things without developing a stable identity, achieve remarkable goals without believing you matter. That is why the question, how much is enough, is often incomplete. A better question may be, enough for what? Enough money for what? Kind of life? Enough achievement for what purpose? Enough recognition from whom? Enough possessions to accomplish what? Enough improvement according to whose standard? Once the question becomes specific, the endless pursuit sometimes begins to lose its power. The question. We rarely ask, we spend enormous amounts of time asking, what do I want next? But very little time asking, what do I already have that I once desperately wanted? That question can be uncomfortable because it reveals how quickly yesterday's dreams become today's background scenery. There may have been a time when you wished for the home you now complain about, the independence you now take for granted, the relationship that has become routine, the abilities you barely notice, the freedom you rarely acknowledge, the ordinary. Life we overlook today may contain things an earlier version of ourselves would have considered extraordinary. That does not mean we should stop wanting. It means we should occasionally notice when wanting has erased seeing. A different definition of enough. Perhaps enough is not a final destination. Perhaps it is the ability to say, I can appreciate where I am without giving up where I am going. That is a very different relationship with ambition. You can pursue the next chapter without despising the current one. You can want improvement without defining yourself as inadequate. You can build more without believing that more will finally make you whole. And perhaps this is the real challenge, not learning to want nothing, but learning to want without becoming owned by wanting. Because the opposite of endless striving is not laziness, it is freedom. In the next episode, we will explore one of the strongest forces preventing us from recognizing enough. Comparison. Why can another person's success suddenly make our own life feel smaller? Why do we compare ourselves even when we know comparison makes us unhappy? And why has the modern world made that ancient tendency more powerful than ever? That is where we go next in the psychology of enough. Until then, consider one question. What do you have today that an earlier version of you once hoped for? The answer may tell you more about enough than another achievement ever could.